Hello and welcome to Women's World, the only TV show where women's issues are put first every time. If it's in the news and it matters to you, then we're bound to be talking about it here. My name is Yvonne Ridley.
And my name is Nabila Zahir. The Muslim faith is under the spotlight again, and this time its detractors and critics are wondering why more women in the West are embracing Islam than any other religion.
Yes, in their eyes, Islam is supposed to be a religion which oppresses and subjugates women, or that's what the critics want everyone else to think. And the profile of the new converts has them baffled.
According to figures from a multi-faith group called Faith Matters, those most likely to convert to Islam are career women in their 20s and 30s. The number who've converted has now passed the 100,000 mark, with 5,200 recorded last year alone.
They are choosing to reject the excesses of Western lifestyle, such as consumerism and immorality. But before we introduce two Muslim women with amazing stories to tell, here's a report from Nina Arif, who talks to a famous European convert. And yes, he's a man, but this show doesn't discriminate.
Islam is often represented in the West as being oppressive to women. Issues like the hijab have always been contentious. So then why are so many women converting to Islam? I'm here to speak to Hamza Zortis to find out. Hamza Zortis, what is awrah and what do you do?
Awrah is the Islamic Education and Research Academy, and they're a global entity that's dedicated in essentially calling people to the Islamic worldview. We're currently conducting a piece of research with regards to new Muslims. So far, we've got some very interesting results on why women are converting to Islam.
What kind of backgrounds are these women who convert to Islam from usually?
Well, many of them are white. They're actually white, indigenous English women.
Now, there's a common view in our society that Islam is oppressive towards women, for example, in terms of inheritance laws. So given that view, why do so many women still convert?
I'm not surprised, because if you do have a thorough reading of Sharia, of Islamic law, then we won't have those outdated cliches. I am surprised because people are actually starting to think about Islamic law in a way that's more nuanced, which is a very good thing. They're transcending the Fox News, Sky News narrative.
But then why is there still this very negative view of Islam in regards to its treatment of women?
Well, it's very simple. If you read the works of Elizabeth Poole, she did research basically correlating the media narrative and our perceptions of Islam. For example, we did research in 2010 on non-Muslim perceptions on Islam and Muslims, which you can download from our website. And basically, people had negative perceptions towards Islam generally, but it was based upon no knowledge, because they said they had no knowledge of Islam. So where did they get that information from? There's a kind of socialization or a media narrative that's basically creating this perception about Islam. Also, if in absence of knowledge, people are going to refer to things that they already know. Like, oh, Sky News said, for example, that this woman did so-and-so.
As we've heard, there are many different reasons for women choosing to become Muslim. This is a growing trend in the West and something we're likely to see more of in years to come. This is Nina Arif reporting for Women's World.
Thank you, Nina. Well, today we're joined by London yoga teacher Camilla Leyland, who has become a Muslim while studying Arabic in Syria. She was reading the Holy Quran and was determined to find fault with it when something else happened.
And sitting next to Camilla is Abdullah. She was tipped to be the next Naomi Campbell, but the supermodel in the making abandoned the international catwalks for Islam. She now inspires and motivates Muslims and non-Muslims alike with her amazing story. It's really hard to know where to start, but I'm going to start with you first, Camilla. You read the Quran and it changed your life. What happened?
I was studying Arabic in Syria, living with a Christian Arab family, and was given a copy of the Quran by a girl in the British Council. And it was Ramadan, so I said to myself, I'm going to fast, because all these Muslims are out there being better than me, and I want to just do it for seeing how it is, for fun. And when I broke my fast in the evening, I found myself feeling a bit hyperactive because I'd had some food. So I was bored, took the Quran down from the top of the wardrobe, opened it on a random page and started reading it. And this happened for 3 nights, each time random page. And each time I read that page, in my head was a dialogue. And I was saying to myself, what makes me happy in my life? And what gives depth and meaning to my existence? And it was only then that I started to realize there was a fight going on within me between the words I was reading and the relevancy that these words, coincidentally or not, whatever you believe, had with my life. And it was then that I started to realise, if I want to be truly happy, I need to live in a way that's going to give myself an existential meaning. And that was Islam.
Right. And Abdullah, you were living to the Western excess, as they say. You were a stunning catwalk model. Teenage girls who are tuning into this will be thinking, this is what we want to do. And you threw it all away.
Yes.
What happened to you?
It was a long journey, actually. It started from the age of about 15. I never had the desire to be a model. It happened by accident. And I found myself thrust into the modeling industry. I was told I was very good at it, and I pursued it with vigor. It afforded me a good lifestyle. I traveled extensively. I made a good amount of money, and I saved a good amount of money. But in making a transition from one agency to another, I was actually approached by Models One agency, by one of the bookers.
That's one of the top agencies in the world.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was working somewhere else to facilitate my income. So when I was approached by this booker from Models One agency, it is something that I'd always wanted to do, because I had myself approached them previously and they declined. So here they were coming to me and asking me to come and see them. But what happened previously, somebody had spoken to me about Islam, and I had actually taken my Shahada, but I didn't really know what it meant, because I took my Shahada on fear. Fear of not wanting to be put in the hellfire, which is what had been explained to me about certain aspects of Islam. And I found it very fascinating. Here was this man and this woman explaining to me what would happen in your life if you didn't lead, what would happen in your death rather, if you didn't lead a life in accordance with how your Creator wants you to be. So I took my Shahada in a rather hasty way. I did no previous, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, the Shahada is the declaration of faith. I'm just thinking we have non-Muslim viewers tuning in as well. And,
yes, yes, of course.
So you embraced Islam?
Yes, I embraced Islam, but the people who actually helped me went their separate way, I went my separate way. And at that time, I didn't realize that Islam wasn't like Christianity. So I continued my career, and then one day something changed. When I went to the model agency and produced my portfolio, I just had a change of heart. And I said to the woman across the desk that I no longer wish to be a model because I'm now a Muslim. And that was actually the beginning of me starting to practice and making that transition in my life. And subsequently, I met other Muslims. And then the road to my being as I am today, it's a long journey, but it's quite a fulfilling journey.
Well, I mean, they're both fascinating stories. And of course, there are so many critics to Islam who question why Western women are converting in the numbers that they are. Camilla, there's a lot of frustration, isn't there, over the profile of the new Muslims?
Yeah, absolutely. The way that we're represented. I mean, there was that researcher mentioned earlier, the lady who discovered that pre-2001, women or converts were represented in the media as a little bit wacky, or they did it just for marriage. And actually, you still feel remnants of that today, although, albeit post-September the 11th, we have a lot more people covering this in the media. But the problem we have now is that we're represented in association with terrorism. So, which is funny considering, you know, how many female converts I know to Islam have any connection to that at all. None. So, you know, that's the problem we face today.
Have you received negative feedback as a white woman who's converted to Islam?
People are confused because what they don't understand is that we're not oppressed as Muslims. In fact, women under Islam have more rights than they do in a society without a religion. particularly a monotheistic one, and particularly Islam, because actually it creates boundaries which men have to comply with to protect us as women. And that's what people just can't understand, and it took me to live in Syria and see in a different setup of social existence that actually women out there thought we in the West are oppressed because of our attitudes towards men, how we can give ourselves freely and how, you know, be left on our own with nothing in the end. And people can just, like a box of chocolates, you can just pick one out, and at the end of the day, there's no depth.
Viewers who are tuning in
Yes.
will be looking at you both as converts and seeing two completely different images.
Yes.
Abdullah, you've chosen to completely cover, you're wearing the niqab and the abaya. Why did you decide to do that, or did someone force you to cover?
No, no one can, people can ask you to cover, people can force you, but ultimately the choice is yours. There is no compulsion in the religion. Whenever somebody has to pray or fast, nobody's standing over you watching you saying, have you prayed, have you fasted? Nobody's doing that. Everything that happens, for me personally, is a choice. Prior to me being like this, I was on a catwalk where I was showing myself off, wearing clothes that revealed my shape, my form. Now, I was getting paid to do this. Men, women could look at me and think whatever thoughts they wanted to. What Islam has taught me personally is to have this sense of morality, a sense of self, a sense of worth. I've chosen to cover like this to protect me. Islam says that yes, as a woman we should cover. Now, some people, even members of my family, have said, oh, why do you have to cover your face? Why do you have to wear always black? Why do you have to dress like this? But for me personally, I had to take that next step. Why? Although I was still walking the streets without my face covered, men would come up to me randomly and make comments. Even recently in a supermarket, and I'm covered like this, a man made a comment to me, and his woman or wife, whoever she was at the time, actually scolded him for doing that to me. So even though you're dressed like this, people are curious. They want to know who is under there, what is under there, what does she look like? But it is really a protection. One feels safe.
Thank you. I mean, well, we're pretty biased here in the studio, but what did Londoners tell Nina Arif when she asked for their views?
Why do you think that 3/4 of the people converting to Islam are women?
I don't know, but maybe because the women find what they want in Islam.
There's been a lot of interest in Islam since kind of 9/11, I would say. And once people look into Islam and what actually it's about, I think they're seeing that it's mainly about justice and equality.
They have their own rights and their own culture, and I think they have a higher status.
Because there's a vacuum in the West, because Christianity is no longer visible. So people are always drawn to something with strong values.
I don't know, maybe women are more open just generally to new ideas and new concepts.
What do you think might be the most difficult thing for a woman who's converting to Islam in the West?
I think it might be restrictions. I mean, Western cultures are really different from what the Islamic religion offers.
Pressure from family, from society.
The acceptance by other people, that's it. That can be hard for some people to accept.
You know, initially they have misconceptions about Islam from media, such as, you know, we just have to cover up and we're not able to do anything and stay at home.
It's hard for them to basically be accepted again once they get into society, once they embrace Islam.
Do you think it's a good thing for British society that women are converting to Islam?
Yeah, actually I like the variety of people in London, so I think if you have like more different opinions on things, then it's better chance you will find good ways to solve the things.
Well, I think it's a terrible impact. I think, you know, that we're being overtaken.
Historically, Muslim women have always been active parts of society, and I think they will continue to be active parts of society.
I personally know a number of people who have converted to Islam, and the difference it makes to them and in their own lives and you know, to their families is immense.
Abdullah, there were some weird comments there, the woman who said they're taking over. Have you come across that sort of prejudice?
I've come across some prejudice, but regarding taking over what? For me, there will always be prejudices in the world. People fear what they don't understand.
Camilla, did you get a strange reaction when you embraced Islam? Did your friends suddenly walk away or question what you were doing?
I think people wanted to know if it had any political context, which it didn't. But because I happened to be working in the West Bank for an NGO running a project out there, people assumed it was because of that. But actually I converted in Syria when I was studying Arabic, and was really, it's a completely depoliticized place, as we know. And so, yeah, it was simply because of reading Quran personally. And people don't understand that. In fact, also when I was interrogated by the Israelis, they kept saying to me, "Who is your imam? Who is your imam?" I didn't have an imam. I just read the Quran, and that was all it came down to. And actually, as a Western woman growing up in this society, the pressures that I was under, like you were saying, having to present yourself for the pleasure of men in a particular way, we are under so much pressure to fight against other women, to have our status by flaunting ourselves, that I just had enough of it.
Abdullah, and how do people react to the niqab? Because obviously we've had the ban of the niqab in France and they're considering banning it here. How do you feel about that, and have you had negative feedback for wearing it?
I've had negative feedback, but primarily the feedback has been quite positive. I've not really, people haven't come and said awful things to me, but, it goes over your head. People generally seem to be quite tolerant and quite pleasant.
But if they were to ban it in the UK, would you carry on wearing it?
Absolutely.
One of the most high-profile converts in recent times has been Press TV's own Lauren Booth. And she had some incredibly vicious, stinging attacks by female columnists. You're nodding there, Camilla. You obviously know the one that I'm talking about. What sort of provokes and prompts that?
I think it's ignorance. I think it's ironic that these people who are journalists, who are supposed to be well-educated, seem to lack such fundamental knowledge of Islam. And I think this comes from fear. People always fear what they don't know. And it's a losing battle at the moment because we're in a post-9/11 world, and most of the media coverage happens to be on terrorism and associating that with Muslims. So here we have it, here we are.
What about the family issues, Abdullah? How did your parents and your immediate family react when you walked off the catwalk and put on an abaya?
Well, the transition was gradual. It didn't all happen all at once. But again, with family, you're raised in a particular environment, in a particular way, and it took them time. It took a long time for them to actually understand. I think initially they felt that I was going for a phase and I would come out of it. But I think as they've seen me steadily progress, they've come to accept it. It's been fine.
And Camilla, did you have any challenging moments with your family?
No, my family were really open-minded, and they've, in a way, been on a journey with me since I converted to Islam. And I think what they've found most difficult, and I think this is what most reverts found very difficult, is the culture versus Islam. And my journey post-converting has been a lot about, trying to distinguish between the two and working within a society which is British and Muslim, but also having other cultures within this society and trying to extrapolate between the culture and Islam.
And how have the Muslim community embraced you as a convert?
Really well, although not 100% of the time. There is still racism in any community, and it doesn't matter where you are. And I think some people don't know how to take it. And I think what I find is different ethnic groups have a different response as well, which is really fascinating. My time in the Middle East, which is where I really was born as a Muslim, was a very nurturing experience where I was really looked after. So that gave me a good foundation.
Do you not get frustrated, though? In the UK, there are some mosques where women cannot enter and cannot worship.
It's amazing you mentioned that, because we experienced this today, just this afternoon. It was prayer time, we wanted to go and pray, and we were told no women were allowed. My friend was told no women are allowed to pray here. So yes, there are, again, as Camilla has mentioned, regarding the differences in the culture, this plays itself out. But I think, you know, we have to look at what does Islam say? What are we told to do? And bypass the culture and practice what we're told to practice.
I know as a convert to Islam myself that I couldn't believe it when I was told that I couldn't enter a mosque to pray in this country, and shortly after that I went to live in Qatar, and when I told friends in the Middle East about this ban, they couldn't believe it either. It is a cultural...
It's a problem as well because it stigmatises Muslims. So we in our own community are adding fuel to this fire. And you're right, when I was in the West Bank in a tiny village, a conservative village, it was normal for women in that village to go and pray, and I would go to the mosque every Friday. And I think, in fact, Faith Matters commissioned a report subsequent to this one on converts. And in that, they did say the challenges they're facing is mosque committees requiring female representation on those committees with some power as well. And also for there to be good facilities, clean facilities for women. And on top of that, facilities not just to pray, but for learning about Islam. And this is where we can improve.
Abdullah, what about your social life? I mean, I would imagine that it's transformed quite a bit now since your days as a model.
It has, it's transformed, it's a different type of social life, and I'm smiling to myself. I know you can't see that, but...
I can through your eyes. Your eyes are very expressive.
I have a very good social life, and I have sisters around me who are very, very wonderful sisters. When we get together to have a social event, it's fun, we enjoy ourselves. I remember my mother saying to me one time, how on earth can you enjoy yourself when it's all women all together? As though, you know, because men are not allowed, that we cannot enjoy ourselves.
But you said sisters, what about your mates, your old friends from the modelling days? Do you still keep in touch with them?
There are one or two that I still keep in touch with, yes. But I can't, you know, if they ask me to come clubbing with them, obviously I have to decline. But there are some of them I keep in touch with. You know, they've asked me why I'm like this now, and I've explained. And by and large, they're very understanding. People are not as, you know, I don't know, constricted in their thoughts and their ideas as people think.
So there's more tolerance actually towards Muslims than we might actually believe.
I really think so. Yeah. Personally, I do.
So this kind of negative attitude towards Muslims, or the perception, is just through the media?
I think it's a small amount of people. I don't think, from my personal experience, I don't think that this is the norm. And I don't think that it is such a generalized view that people think, oh, people are being attacked every minute. No, definitely not.
Camilla, are Western converts being helped enough by the Muslim community in general?
Well, that was something that came out in the report, and I would agree with it. I think more can be done, and I think in my case I've been fine, because for me my faith is a very personal thing, and I practice whether I'm living in Cornwall, where there are no Muslims, or whether I'm here. But I do know that for a lot of people who weren't nurtured in the Middle East, you know, to begin with as Muslims, it must be very, very isolating for some people.
Well, it's certainly a subject that we can look at for another time.
Yes.
Nabila.
Thank you. Sadly, we've come to an end of this week's Women's World, but we will be back again next week with more stories, views and issues close to the women of this world.
And their men. So it's goodbye from me, Yvonne Ridley.
And me, Nabila Zahir. Women's World will be back again on your screens next week.